Move on to the sequencer. And the sequencer has two basic parts. It has the sequences that have been recorded, and you can click on these and it pulls up the sequences. And basically how this works is it just goes down this list of operations here, and when it hits this line, it'll use this as a parameter for that operation. So it just basically goes down this line. And this one here is kind of long, and I realized it was kind of hard to edit. So I put these gray areas in here, which are sort of a grouping or a comment, and it just makes it easier to read. It's really not an operation. Over here I have the operations in this all sorted category, and you can add one of these grouping functions just by taking this and dragging it over here. And I'm going to do the z-axis there, so I'm going to just say it's the z-axis. So when I scroll down here, this was the end of the y-axis, so next is the z. And you can delete stuff out of here too, like I put this hello world in here earlier, and get rid of that. Okay. Then once you do that, you can save this sequence out to memory, and if you make up a new name, you'll have another one, or you can just write over what you have. Okay, to write one of these sequences, it's fairly simple. You can just start dragging stuff up here, and I'm going to explain a few of them. What this one would do is it asks the user for some information. So you can ask the technician what the model or the serial number is. Let's just say model number. And those items are over here. You have these lists of questions you can ask, and you can expand this list as far as you want. Here's the model numbers that'll come up when it hits that line. Let's just run that. Yeah, let's pick that one. Okay, that was a very simple sequence. In addition to that, there's some information that the program already knows. Like it knows what the Windows user ID is, and there may be a lot of information that could be added to this. I mean, this is kind of a short list, but it's just what I came up with. But you could put like model and serial numbers of the test equipment that's used, the correction factor files, the temperature, the firmware of the probe, just whatever you want. And this would be stuff that it can pick up without any questions from the user. Okay, in addition to that, I set up some rotor controls. This would zero the rotor, and then once you zero the rotor, you're probably going to rotate it 120 degrees to do the next axis. Then you'd probably do that again, and then you'd probably return it back to 0. Okay, I also have something here where you can rotate it a specific number of degrees, and you can select a number here. And there's one that goes clockwise as well as counterclockwise. Okay, then I also set up a way that you could load in correction factors, and I have those right here. So this would be your amplifier curve. You can drag this up here and drop it before you start the test. And when you do that, this edit box pops up, and it takes you out to this equipment corrections folder, and then there's a subfolder called amplifiers, and you can select an amplifier. And you can do that for the coupling factor. Do it for the probe. And you can do it for the amplifier curve, which isn't something we usually do, but I needed it to simulate a test. And then finally, when you have all that stuff, you can load in a test file that has the frequencies and the power levels that you want to apply. I'm going to come out here and just pick one. So then I set up 2 tests. I have a run test, which does a single axis test, and I have one that does a 3-axis test. And then after the test is done, you're going to want to save the data somehow, and I have 4 options for that. You can save it to a CSV. You could save it in a binary format. That would prevent the technicians from editing it. And you could save it directly to a database. And you can save it to a test project. And if you're going to save it to a test project, you're probably going to want to load a test project, and I have that up here. Put that in here somewhere. Okay, so that would make up one axis. So you could come in here and you could drag a group up there. Let's do that. Where's that? Let's say this is the start of the x-axis. And let's see, where's our rotation? It's the y-axis. Okay, so you could go through there and you could run this, and there's a few other features here. I have it set up so that the calculator can be used after you collect the data, so you could place that right in here. Actually, you'd probably want to have it before you save the data. Then when you do that, you have access to the same equations that are over here. So I'm going to select this x-axis correction. Okay, you also have this display data function, which is actually the same as pushing this button here, and it just refreshes the graph. This one here finds the highest points in the data, and you can set it to the number of points. That would be useful for if you're using a spectrum analyzer. This one finds the probe peak. Here I have an initialization for the probe, and here's something that logs the test equipment that's in a station into a project, so you can select the station you want. And then this one here would only log the data that's reported on the certificate if you wanted to shorten the list. And then here's something to turn the RF on and off. And you can set it on true or false. And then there's going to be times when you might want to send in more parameters than something this simple. So I came up with this spectrum analyzer, and when you do that, this box pops up, and then you can come in here and you can select some settings from here. Then when you do that, you can look over here and see if that's what you want, and if you decide that that's not the correct one, you can snoop around in here and look for something different. And then if at some point you decide, yeah, that's what I want, but I want to change stop frequency to 4,000 megahertz, and these here are enums, so you can look at these. Anyways, just change that to 4,000, so you hit save setting, and you come in here and put a 4 in here, hit OK. Then you could go back down here and find that entry in here. Here it is. Okay, so that pretty much covers the sequencer.